his rate was $4.40 an hour. I requested a discount, which Mr. Sturba provided, at $3.50 per hour. The last three retained village attorneys for special counsel were in this order: James Kelly, Patrick Bond from Bond Dixon. James Kelly was $2.25 an hour, Patrick was $200 an hour, and our last signed paid special counsel was Burke Warren at $440 an hour. The rate of $3.50 falls within those three numbers, Joe. That's why.
But Ted Clark also. Ted Clark. Ted Clark.
No, Ted is not special counsel.
No.
No, Ted is no.
But the point, the question was an oversight that you set the compensation, and the board has that allocation. Isn't that right?
I set the compensation within the parameters that the board has approved and paid, which was between $200 and $340 an hour.
No. I'm talking about with respect to this special counsel, not historically.
Well, that's the parameter, Joe, that I've got, is what this board...
No, that's not my question.
So what would you suggest we set it at?
That's our obligation, that's the board's obligation, and right to set the compensation. I'm just asking you whether you just did not realize that when you entered into this agreement.
No, I realize that the range for compensation...
That's not my question.
But that's not the issue.
Did you realize that it's the board's right and obligation to set the compensation for a special counsel when you entered into this attorney-client
Why has the
agreement?
board done that in the past?
That's my question, so yes or no. Did you know, or did you?
Attorney Kelly's been retained how many times?
I'm not asking you the question, Kelly. I'm asking
Board's never said.
President McLaughlin the question.
Correct.
Were you aware of section 1-6-6D2?
Yes, Joe, I am aware.
You were aware of it
I
at
was
the time?
aware that the range that the board has approved is between 200 and 400.
That's not my question.
Well, that's my answer, Joe. That's
Well,
what
that's not a straight answer. My question is.
So that's the answer you're getting.
Okay, so I'm not going to get a straight
I
answer.
move forward.
So then I would assume that you knew full well that you did not have the right to set the compensation for special counsel. Is that accurate?
It's inaccurate, Joe, but you
So
can
you
proceed.
did believe you had the right? Is that what you believe?
Joe, the
Yes
special
or no?
counsel provision.
Yes or no? Do you
Listen,
believe, did
Joe,
you
we're not
believe?
in court, so that's the
Well,
answer
no,
you're getting.
this is a very important issue. This is a question of whether you complied with the village code or not, or you actually have entered into an agreement that is actually void because you've specified a compensation that you had no right to. In fact, it's a huge disservice to this attorney Sturba, who apparently believed that you had the right to set his compensation when you didn't.
From 2005 to 2014, the former president set the compensation of special counsel Kelly to the tune of $609,806 that none of you ever voted on once.
His bills were paid, or his bills were
Never voted on
somebody takes care of it.
the
Your position-
compensation of Mr. Kelly.
So your
the
position is
special
that,
counsel.
that we can just disregard?
You appear to have done it from 2005 to 2014, and now all of a sudden, it's an issue.
It is an issue.
Yes, because it's President McLaughlin and not President Abood.
You know, it is
So
what it is,
sad
Colin.
that he lost the election, Joe, but he did move
So we
on.
have a president now that gets to set compensation despite the fact
Within a
that.
reasonable range. Order, please, within a reasonable range that this board has approved recently.
Okay.
Just by way of point of information, there is no matter pending on the board to have discussions. But there's going to be action to have that discussion, motions should be appropriate.
Well, I'd like answers to my questions. I mean, you're basically not answering my questions. Did you know or did you not know about this?
Joe, I gave my answer, so let's move forward.
Okay, so your answer is to dodge the question.
Joe, you can interpret however you want my answer. Is there a motion on the floor?
What is the-
Well, I don't think there's been a motion made, so.
What is the motion?
My
What's your
motion
motion?
is to set the compensation for this special counsel at 0.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I have a lot of
Well, I
discussion.
have some discussion. question. Do you want him to be set at 0 for the items that you want him now to investigate President McLaughlin on as well? Or are you willing to pay him $350 an hour for those items?
I don't want him to investigate President McLaughlin. I wanted the record to be clear that President McLaughlin stated that he would include those in his charge.
Absolutely.
But now that you bring that point up, let me raise something else. Section 6 of the attorney-client retainer agreement says, client, and that would be Marty because he's the one that signed this thing, agrees to furnish attorneys with all the specific allegations and related documentation in its possession. So what are the specific allegations and related documents that pertain to this special inquiry? I asked that at our last meeting. I asked that it be posted. It never has been.
It was posted.
It was very general and vague. It is entirely unclear. Let me finish. It is entirely unclear what this gentleman's charge is. And interestingly, he has asked you to define his role, but you've never done it. You won't tell us. You apparently have not told him. And so talk about a waste of taxpayer dollars. Here's a guy that's gonna go off at $3.50 an hour and try to, I guess, go on some kind of a witch hunt to figure out what his charge is and what he's gonna be investigating. We've never heard what these allegations are.
Now we have it. Dolores, you said you have a copy of this. When did you get it?
It was posted, Dolores went on the village website, I think it was a couple of weeks back, is that correct?
Oh, that? That
There's
has
no
no
specific.
specificity. We
Those were
have
not
no
the
idea what
specifics.
that
See,
is.
this says, if you look at item 7, and this was what I was responding to, or reacting to, and that you should understand, you're saying, I'm gonna hire a special counsel to
Here, I've got it.
investigate.
I've got it. This is what was posted on the village website. Why don't we take a look at it and see what we can glean from this document? Any information whatsoever pertaining to the areas of inquiry for special counsel was asked the village, asked the president to find what these things are.
We've been asking you for months, what are the allegations? What are the,
He says, I will appoint, this is the village president, I will appoint special counsel David Sturba, former appellate court judge, to commence an inquiry into whether there was any improper influence or conduct by any appointed or elected Barrington Hills officials related to all phases of the commercial boarding legislation from initiation to approval by the ZBA and passage by the board of trustees. Now, what would be these areas of improper influence? What did you have in mind, Marty?
I think I was very explicit, Joe, and that'll stand.
Well,
as
no,
my response.
what are they? What's the improper influence you're talking about?
Joe, I'll let the document stand on its own.
Well, this what's the improper influence? I don't understand what it is. Are you thinking that maybe somebody paid somebody off? Is that what you're saying?
Joe, I'd hesitate to speculate, and again,
Well, I think
But how
so
could
you
you
signed
only-
it,
how
Cal.
could
Here, he's not gonna comment until afterwards, so.
But I don't understand, Marty, because here we have,
It's
but it doesn't make any sense, Marty, because here it says, client agrees to furnish attorneys with all the specific allegations and related documentation in his possession. Specific allegations certainly need more than whether there was any improper influence or conduct by any appointed or elected Barrington Hills officials.
Well,
I mean,
that's right.
it must be, like, improper conduct, do you mean somebody was running around with no clothes on? Do you mean that somebody was wearing a paper mache hat at one of the hearings? Or do you mean that somebody was paying somebody off?
Is this
Maybe
your
Mr.
motion?
Jury was paying off
Joe, is
Mr.
this
McLaughlin?
part of your motion?
No, I'm just asking you, I'd like to know.
You-
I think
you-
I have a right to know.
You have made allegations against the Board of Trustees, the Zoning Board of Appeals. You have stated in here, challenging the process of the ordinance and the conduct of certain village officials. The village residents have a right to know that the process by which the approval of village legislation is free from any outside influence or impropriety. So you have cast your net on all of the people who are serving this village, who have been elected or appointed, who have worked hard to get through a process that was difficult at best. You are casting aspersions on our honesty, on our character.
Order, please, order.
So
Yeah,
what
see,
I,
and I would say, if you have people in your council who have those questions and want that investigation, we should encourage them to hire a lawyer, we certainly have enough of them, and to file suit or investigate, do whatever they want to do, but do it on their own
Well,
dime.
actually, I'll do you one up on that. What President McLaughlin should do, if he believes that he thinks that there's impropriety, some illegal conduct, it would be incumbent upon him to go to the Attorney General
Exactly.
or the state's attorney.
Correct.
If it's to the level that it constitutes commission of a crime, it goes to the state's attorney. If it's an Open Meetings Act violation, it would go to the Attorney General's office. Illinois has a Corrupt Practices Act statute, and it governs corrupt conduct in the context of legislative process. Who enforces that? It's not, you don't pass an ordinance or you don't appoint special counsel within your village ordinance to investigate. This special counsel has absolutely no authority, no power. There's nothing in our code that gives him any direction or any rights. He has no right to subpoena. He has no right to take testimony under oath. He can't even commence a court action. You don't need to do that. And why waste the taxpayers' dollars on something like that if you really truthfully have a concern about illegal conduct and rulemaking and lawmaking? You engage the governmental agencies that are there for that process, that would be the Attorney General, the state's attorney. Anything else, this is a complete waste of taxpayer dollars.
And the taxpayers are already paying for the Attorney General and the Public Access Counselor and the state's attorney, the sheriff, the state police. You're free to talk to any of those folks. And residents who think that there's been some horrible take place here, they've got the civil court system where there's a process, a procedure, due process, the rule of law, all those things that have been built into our democracy. They're all there.
Here's something too that the village has already spent money on if we have any concerns about conflicts of interest. I mean, Mary Dixon, I don't know that this has actually been shared by the village president with anybody, but Mary Dixon looked into this ZBA alleged conflict of interest. She was paid for this work. She's been paid as a ZBA attorney. And there was a question that was raised as to whether any of these ZBA members would have had a conflict of interest by virtue of the fact that they were riding club members. And guess what? The village attorney said no, there was not a conflict of interest. It's in the record. It's now I'll make it part of the record. This particular hearing. So we know that that's not the case. We know that the fact that somebody was a riding club member did not disqualify them from taking action. So then we can at least maybe through the process of eliminating, I guess, trial and error, figure out what these alleged improprieties are. I'd really like to know what they are, Marty, because I think you're wasting taxpayer dollars
Joe, you
on
have
a
that,
witch hunt,
Joe,
which
you
is
have
really
that right.
interestingly
and I appreciate
timed.
the dialogue, but
Interestingly timed with the election, Marty.
Yeah.
Very interestingly timed, because it's.
Joe, do you have a motion as it relates to setting compensation of special counsel?
I have a discussion that I'm engaging in with you.
I think
If
you
you
made
don't
those
want to answer the questions, if you want to continue to dodge the question, I mean, even your most vehement supporters would have to be able to sit here and say, geez, Marty, why can't you tell Joe that you think he took a bribe?
Joe, I've
Why
never
can't
said
you
that.
tell
I
Joe
would
that?
never say that, and I think that, I think you're out of order, Joe. making
No,
that
I don't think
assertion.
I'm out of
Do
order.
you
Yeah, you are.
understand, Marty, that you've gone into contract with a lawyer, and you're saying there are allegations, and I'm included in this directive, so my immediate reaction is, gosh, do I need to hire a lawyer?
No.
Should
Do we all need to hire a lawyer?
Yes.
Should we all
Yes.
bill the village for it to defend ourselves against?
Why didn't you ever ask me if there was something you wanted to know?
Marty, it's cool with
That's
me.
free.
It's cool with me if you want to say, yeah, Joe, I believe Dave Steeper. I think Dave Steeper's got 100%, he nailed it. You know, you guys are all corrupt, and,
If we all took bribes.
you know, if you want to say that, that's great, but you got to at least have the cojones to say it. You can't just sit there and not say what's on your
Joe, at
mind.
this point, you're out of order. We've gone far enough on an item that's not even here. Do you
No,
have
I
a
don't
rate
think
you'd
so.
like to set for
I
special
think we're
counsel?
talking about.
The only comment I have, if we go ahead with this or not, which is fine, the taxpayers want to pay for this. What happens if no one wants to talk to this special attorney.
That's the right of every person.
Okay,
Chris.
so you've hired
And
this
Joe is
person.
Correct. Joe
So
is
you hired
correct.
this person, correct? And no one talks to him.
And how many trips will he drive out here and make and charge his?
No, I'm not getting into that. All I'm saying
I'll
is,
talk to him, Chris.
Order, please.
you know, all I'm saying is that if he's, you know, getting paid whatever the amount is, $200, $350, $500, whatever the heck it is, if no one's gonna talk to the person, then you're just spending money you don't need to spend. Taxpayers wanna spend it, fine.
I don't think they want to spend it. I think
So
it's a
Fritz,
waste of
what do you
taxpayer
have for
money.
a rate that you would suggest based on
The rate, that's, you know,
you've got to set the rate.
yeah, no, I understand you gotta set the rate, and basically, if what you said, what you're telling us is his rate was $450 and you got him down.
440 is.
I'm sorry, $440, forgive me, and you got him down to $350.
It's on my agenda, I'm gonna make the motion. My motion is that there's no value in this special attorney, and so his rate should be 0. Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Any further discussion?
It's a useless endeavor, it's a waste of taxpayer money. You should be ashamed of yourself for undertaking this, Marty. If you have a serious and a legitimate concern rather than a political game, you ought to be calling the state's attorney, you ought to be calling the attorney general, you ought to be filing whatever you think is necessary with those governmental agencies, and not wasting our precious taxpayer dollars on a political stunt that you believe is going to help you get your people elected by tarnishing the reputation of people who have been serving this village for years and doing their best.
I agree.
I think it's despicable what they've done.
I agree.
Is there any
Bad
further
idea.
discussion?
I'll just say I agree with
Dolores,
Joe.
please
It's
take
that
the roll.
idea.
Trustee Harrington?
Yes.
Trustee Coniston?
No.
Trustee Moroni?
Yes.
Trustee Selman?
Yes,
Trustee Messer?
Yes.
Trustee Gould?
Yes.
President McLaughlin?
No. And we'll move forward. Planning.
So I'm just gonna make sure.
Joe, discussion's
No,
over.
no, I'm
Joe,
gonna,
discussion's
hey,
over.
listen, I have the right,
Discussion's over.
you can say discussion's over, but I'm gonna let Mr. Sturban know that his compensation is a big fat 0. I'm gonna write him a letter tomorrow, buddy.
Joe, the prop monk.
And you know what you wanna do, if you think that that's an ethical violation, if you think that's in furtherance of something illegal I've done, I would ask you, I would beg you to call the Attorney General. I would say, you ought to call Lisa Madigan right away tomorrow and say, Joe is engaged in some illegal activity. And you ought to specify to her what precisely that is. And then maybe this thing will get handled. But it's not gonna work in this pretend fantasy land that you think you created, which you, by the way, have not created.
Item 6.1. County planning.
Yeah, the planning commission did not meet this month, so there is no planning commission report.
Insurance, Michael,
No action items on insurance.
bless you. Tax, Mike.
Well, heck, I just want to repeat what Jane Goss said, is that we're having our birthday roadside cleanup on April 25th. There is an announcement in here, there's an announcement in here that has a lot of great details. And Dan worked really hard on this, and Josie worked hard on this. And there's also a disclosure and a waiver of liability, which is really important for people who are under the age of 18. Jan and Josie, it looks like, may have enlisted the assistance of some Boy Scout troops, which is exciting because the more people the merrier, because we do have a lot of trash, as you will see when the snow melts. And just please come out, bring your friends, it'll be a fun event, and it's a great thing to do for the village. So that's the main point I want to make on that,
Thank you.
and it's all in here.
Great. Attorney pending litigation.
I'm sorry, there were a couple of mine.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
So the monthly report for Building and Grounds, I'll let you review that at your leisure. It speaks for itself. And then Board of Health, just a couple of quick things, updates on that. I mentioned previously that they're looking to change the septic regulations of our code to make them compliant with the state changes. And so, I don't know when the last time you looked at those, but just another, not necessarily, just another advance notice that that's something we're all gonna have to look at, and it's pretty detailed. They're also looking at issues that may be related to horse boarding. They've asked for the involvement of the equestrian committee, so I think it's good that those two committees speak to each other so they get the correct expertise in the room. And then the type 2 water testing of commercial wells in the village, it does look like Baycog can cover that under the program, which could potentially save us a lot of money, which is a positive thing, but we'll just have to make sure we coordinate that properly.
Fritz, I'm about to,
You doing all right, Fritz?
well, I may ask the board to excuse.
Yes, Fritz, and thank you. Moving forward, just for the record, Dolores Fritz is 1044, is due to illness. Thank you, Fritz, for
Thank you, sir.
coming and participating in your condition. We're moving to attorney, pending litigation or personnel.
There is no pending litigation report, nor is there any personnel.
Item 10, collective bargaining negotiations report. We are going to move that to executive session as we're in active negotiation. Would not be proper to discuss in public session at this time. We've done items 10.2. We're moving on to item 10.3, the veto report on the special counsel. The issue that we've got on this is that I vetoed the ordinance 15.1 for special counsel as a follow-up to the Board of Trustees meeting held on January 26, 2015, under the legal authority granted to the President of the Village of Barrington Hills pursuant to 1-6-6, Section D1 of the Barrington Hills Village Code. And as, oh, excuse me, so that's the wrong document. Oh, okay, apologize. Laura scratched that. In accordance, so this is a veto message to a special counsel provision passed by the village board on 1/26/2015. In accordance with sections 154 and 1512 of the village code and sections 3.1-455 and 3.1-40-45 of the Village Municipal Code, I hereby veto ordinance 15.1 entitled "An Ordinance Repealing and Replacing Section 166B of the Village Code," which was passed by the Village Board of Trustees on January 26, 2015. This measure violates the constitutional right of the residents to change or alter the village's form of government by referendum pursuant to Section 6, Article 7 of the Illinois Constitution. Therefore, this measure is unconstitutionally and legally invalid. While certain trustees of the board have resolved to trample on the constitutional right of the village residents in this regard, they will not do so without my firm veto opposition. It is an affront to the residents who elected the village president to uphold the law. For the past 25 years, the village president has had the authority to appoint special counsel, in addition to the village president's authority to appoint the village attorney, among other officers. Over these years, the village president has made numerous appointments of special counsel for various reasons. The presidential power of appointment is in accord with the village's long-established trustee village form of government. Under the trustee village form of government, appointments to non-elective officers are made by the village president, nominated by him and agreed to by the board. Under item 6.5 ILCS 5/3.1, 35. Currently, section 166D of the village code is the codification of the village president's authority to appoint special counsel. The Illinois Supreme Court explained in 1976 that the commission form of government is the only form of government whereby council members have the power and the authority to make appointments to non-elective offices. The case that stated was Peschwaus versus Slauko. The Illinois Supreme Court has also determined that measure, such as the one proposed by Trustee Messer and voted on by the board, violates the Illinois Constitution when passed without a referendum pursuant to Section 6, Article 7 of the Illinois Constitution. A home rule unit shall have the power to approve by referendum, to adopt, alter, or repeal a form of government provided by law, and a home rule municipality shall have the power to provide for its officers their manner of selection and terms of office only as approved by referendum or otherwise authorized by law. The Illinois Supreme Court has interpreted these constitutional provisions to absolutely prohibit the village board's action vesting the power of appointment with the village board of trustees without a referendum. Again, the case is Peshaus 64, Illinois 2D 588357, NE 2D at 1151. Any such action is flatly unconstitutional and invalid. The measure drafted by and proposed by Trustee Messer and passed by the majority of the village board unequivocally vests the power to appoint special counsel with the village trustees to the exclusion of the village president. This action attempts to change and alter the village's form of government without referendum. This action is unconstitutional, invalid, and demonstrates contempt for the right of village residents to determine and to alter their own form of government. Certain trustees have determined that their desire for unilateral control outweighs the right of village residents. I strongly urge that the village trustees to forego any effort to override this veto so as to avoid a blatant unconstitutional violation and avoid further village embarrassment for engaging in this improper action. I am firmly opposed to the measure. Accordingly, I must return this ordinance to the village board of trustees with my veto pursuant to section 154 and 1512 of the village code and sections 3.1-45-5, 3.1-40-45 of the Illinois Municipal Code. I hereby return ordinance number 15-1 entitled Ordinance Repealing and Replacing Section 166D of the Village Code to the next regular scheduled meeting of the Village Board of Trustees occurring not less than 5 days after the date of passage, with the foregoing objections vetoed in its entirety. So this will be provided to the clerk as we move forward. One thing that I would add, however, is if this board is intent on making that change, I would be more than happy, as I've stated in the past, to put that item before our residents to decide whether they would like to change the form of government. And that's the only way that we can actually go forward and do that.
Two questions for you. One is, who wrote that opinion?
I wrote the opinion with a number of different councils, including Von Dixon assisted as well.
And secondly, I think your facts are wrong, because as I read it, there was nothing that excluded the president from that process.
And we had this conversation last month, and you are a part of the board of trustees. And that was confirmed as we sat here, I think, if we go back to the recording.
Well, I think, Patty,
You are part
then
of
we
it.
should bring this up as we did with the horse boarding text amendment at the next meeting. Moving on, 10-4, we've already discussed.
One more question.
Sure.
Attorney Bond, do you agree with the president's legal opinion?
I do.
You do, all of it?
Well, I don't know if he rendered it legal, didn't he? Had some statement in
I guess he can't, because he's not.
I agree with the legal facts that forth within that. I agree that that's the proclamation of the Supreme Court, and I agree that the action that was taken would undermine the form of government, which can only be done by way of referendum. I would have the same concern over fixing the action
So
taken
when-
previously.
Excuse me, can we
I can't hear anything.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, the question was, do I agree with that, and I said that I do agree with that, the legal parameters that were set forth in that presidential.
So when
Wait,
the,
hold on, Mike, 1 second. You were going to go further on another comment as you talked about special counsel.
Well, I think we had the same, the action was taken tonight, I think you run the same action, I think setting the compensation at zero has the same effect of divesting the president of the power.
so what's the point of having
Yeah,
a board?
it's-
Why would anybody have a board? Why don't you just have a czar?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it just makes no sense. And why would we have a village code that was presumably put forward by a duly elected board in prior years if future boards can't change it? That just doesn't
You
make any
can't
sense.
change it, you can change it by referendum.
Change it by referendum.
So then why have a
And-
board?
and
What's the
it's-
purpose of a board?
It's based on,
Why don't we just have the
it's
people
based
govern?
on statute, Mike.
What's
It's
the,
not
what's the
just, it
purpose
wasn't
of
created out of
representative
thin
form,
air.
representative form of government? Why representative? I mean, I must have missed something in civics class. It just makes no sense to me. I mean, I don't know if it's been litigated or, you know,
So item 10.5,
it makes no sense.
item 10.5 is actually, was supposed to read referendum discussion for duties defined of special counsel. Yeah, I understand that. We already did the item 4. So again, my provision would be, if we're interested in changing the form of government, whether it's me, whether it's the next person, I think that we should put it forth to the residents of this community. In addition, which I've stated multiple times, I also believe in that we should also consider, as it relates to appointments being made by presidents from the date of election unto the time that the next president is seated. I also think we should consider that change for the benefit of whoever is in this office. And additionally, I think that we should visit the idea of having board members and commission members upon the expiration of their time in office, the holdover provision, I also think is something that we should put before the residents. So, Mike, I'm all for considering these changes in the form and fashion that's appropriate.
First of all, I don't believe you because you're not an attorney.
I'll have it drafted up tomorrow.
I'd like a legal opinion from an attorney. And besides your own attorney. I will, this is one
Mike, that
case
is so
where I will
offensive.
approve a special counsel. You're not an attorney, Marty. You say it's offensive, it's offensive to
No,
me.
what I said was that when you mentioned that Mr. Ron is a personal attorney, it's offensive.
Well, no,
No, we've had that debate. I'm entitled to my opinion.
Okay,
yeah, it resonates with me that he's your personal attorney as well, Mark.
thanks, Joel.
If I could speak up.
Sure.
I take offense at that. I was retained, I didn't know Marty McLaughlin before I came.
No, we've gone
Well,
there.
Mike, let it speak. Mike,
I'm gonna say it
related to the man's
Legal
integrity.
services on behalf of Marty McLaughlin or anybody on this village on a personal basis. I provided legal representation when asked on behalf of the board and the board members.
Excuse me?
I-
Mary
him finish
Dixon
that.
did not
Let
provide.
him finish,
We
Ben.
refused.
Well, I'll address that too, because Mary Dixon is the partner who oversees the billing, and her inquiry simply was, is trustee Maroney going to compensate for the assignments she provided? And the answer was not in the affirmative. She did not refuse to perform
She
any
didn't
work.
ask.
She did not refuse to perform any work on behalf of the village. And again, I've never served in any capacity other than that as a temporary village attorney for the village of Barrington Hills, or as a special village attorney. I've not ever at any time, in any capacity, performed any services, personal service, on behalf of Martin McLaughlin or anyone else on this board.
Thank you.
I would differ with you. Here is an email sent to Dan Strahan, copied to me and to Robert Cozen on Monday, February 2nd. From Mary Dixon, trustee Maroney, gentlemen. I understand from Administrator Cozen that this matter has been deferred by IDOT until April. This is regarding the Mary Oaks Road drainage project. Actually, she was wrong. It was an IDOT and it was not deferred. She didn't have her facts right. In recognition of trustee Maroney's position on the legality of the services provided by this firm due to her concerns over our appointment, I will also defer this matter and trust that if the village needs to verify information or contact the property owner, that Mr. Cozen or the village's engineer do so. Mary. So, sorry, she has refused to do village work.
I disagree. She inquired, there was no indication payment would be made. She did not refuse.
Okay, going forward, if the board would be interested in doing it, Mike, I'd be more than happy to go forward in that regard. And I think that's the appropriate way to go.
I think we should have a written opinion, because a written opinion has more weight,
Okay.
and there's
No,
more
I agree.
liability for the writer of the opinion,
Okay.
as to whether they really stand behind that particular.
Okay, I think that's, we'll move forward on that. At this time, we are going to close public session, and for the purposes of discussing collective bargaining negotiations.
What is this, wild